Now we have 3,000 vendors in England selling, and many more around the world, where a million magazines, the big issue, sold weekly in Europe. And this is in Leningrad now, this newspaper, and in Melbourne and various other countries. It works. It was a social enterprise. It is a social enterprise, you know, designed by my husband, the body shop, and handed over, because we aren't good at running newspapers, we're good at making cosmetics. So that was the big issue. And they're the vendors. They're smart. They're entrepreneurial. They'll walk outside or stand outside a Harrods with their notices written in Japanese. And you know, it's to the delight to see an enterprise like this survive. So then the other thing that we do, because we never were very good at advertising. In fact, we hardly spent 1 penny on national advertising. We have trucks. Many trucks delivering their products to around the world, look, Europe, France, and the UK. Nothing could be more boring than having Body Shop skin and hair care products on them. So they became our moving billboards. 12 of our trucks are allocated to missing children. So the missing young people on the side of the trucks, 75% of these children have been found. This girl was found down in the beach, right down in the south of Marseille, on a beach. A truck driver remembered her face because he had emblazoned on his truck. Found her, she was drugged, she was being groomed for the sex industry. She'd been going into Albania and then into Eastern Europe. He found her, brought her back home. Celebration. This bonds you to the community. You know, not being or paying for another ad saying how wonderful your product is. This is the work of genius because it's guerrilla, it's so low cost, and any company that's got access to trucks should be doing this sort of stuff. We've had fun with politicians on this. We were so outraged by the Conservative government and every successive government, their attitude to education, thinking it was an investment. And you know, it was an expense, it was too expensive to cut costs. So we had a wonderful quote on the side of our trucks that said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And at the back we had the home phone number of the Minister of Education and his office number. So we became an irritant. Productivity is the human spirit. I mentioned that in the opening of the speech. And let me tell you a story of how I had a measurement of productivity of the human spirit. A member of our staff, after working some 3 weeks in an exhausted Romanian orphanage, other members of our staff, you know, working for human rights in our shops when we campaign for prisoners of conscience, when they come up to you and they put their hands on your shoulders, and they say to you, this is the real me. They're not going home dreaming of moisture creams or bubble baths. They're going home looking at their potential of power. Young people want a Monday to Friday living. They don't want a Monday to Friday death. They want to be part of a social experiment. They want to be able to change the way things. They want to be able to see their vision and their power in dreams and in music, not in the financial, you know, profit and loss sheets. And so taking many of our young staff and with us on these events like we have in Moldavia or in Romania, in Kosovo, Albania, and now Eastern Europe, I think it's been extraordinary. And I arrived in, this was set up, a charity we set up 12 years ago called Children on the Edge. And it was started by an accident. It started by me being invited to go and visit some of the appalling conditions in Romania after Ceausescu was assassinated. And I went and visited with some of the Médecins Sans Frontières people. I went into some of these castles in Romania, and they look like Walt Disney castles. They look really pretty from the outside. And then you knock on the door, you bang on the door, and when the door opens, this huge wave of species and decay and urine, all this gagging. And as you go up the steps, you see things like this. You see children in cots that have probably not left a cot for 6 months, or just been once a week to get washed down or scrubbed down in conditions like this where they have hose pipes. Or they're incarcerated in cells underground. These are children that are so deformed, haven't even experienced human touch. And I saw what was going on in this crazy institutionalizing of kids, where thousands of kids, mothers were forced to have 4 or 5 children, whether they could afford them or not, for the army and for the mining industry. This is how mad some of these dictators are. And every child was inoculated. Every child, so every child at that stage had HIV and AIDS and died. Subsequently, all of those children I showed you that. So I came back and I said to my staff, I'm going to take a busload, 30 members of my company, anybody, volunteer. You get 2 months off from work, come and let's do something. And they came and they cleaned up the lavatories, they cleaned up the conditions, they made everything amazing, they played with the kids. But they realized this was only just token. What you have to do is stay there. So I took three of the young women who were with my staff and I said, do you want to be 5 at a body shop and run a charity? And here's a warehouse, here's a fax machine, here's some money, here's a telephone. Let's go and let's do something. 12 years later, Children on the Edge is one of the most respected charities in deinstitutionalizing children in Europe. Absolutely respected by the United Nations. This is allowing young people their power. And so, and we still consider and still work in these areas, like in Albania, where we take trucks, big trucks, which have shower units in them, some dozen shower units. We go up and down the highway, and not only the highways, but the mountains of Albania. And people have been, just walking for months out of these war crises. We give them a shower, some freedom, some privacy, and also alongside it goes, the wrong way around. We're going the right way around this time. It's these little medical units. Rape is a strategy of war. Women are consistently raped as a strategy. So this does gynecological examinations and gunshot wounds. This now is in Chechnya now, and so our trucks and our vehicles go everywhere. This is what business should be doing. If governments aren't doing this, somebody's got to do it. And we're the ones with the money. And you don't have to accumulate. Accumulation of wealth is a very, very, very new thing. People are now measured by how much they earn. You've got the rich list, you've got the Fortune 500 list, you've got the Sunday Times richest people in the UK. And it's a sort of a badge of respect, just being rich. But my whole thesis is we should give it away. To die rich, I think, is an obscenity. The stage of my life I'm at now is the joy of being able to give it away. To die rich is an obscenity. And working alongside great people with a vision, helping them, whether it's working for any peace initiative, as I do, or any initiative that deals with the great dilemmas of social alienation or human rights and trade justice, I'll work there. So we go into areas like this village, totally destroyed in Kosovo. It's called Chapra, it's a mountain village. And there where some 2,100 people live. And before the war, they had the best pedagogue, they had the best school, some of the best teachers. So we went back in and we rebuilt the school as a conflict resolution area, a community area, and a school. And it was amazing. And raising the money for things like this wasn't difficult. I had a really good chance because a very famous American actress, Melanie Griffiths, wanted to come and do some work with me in Albania. But she didn't, because she was a bit frightened. So she felt a little bit sheepish by her, she was a bit scared. So I said to her, why didn't I do a talk at your home? And why did you get all these famous movie stars to come? And she did. And we raised $250,000 for the school just on one conversation. So that was, she was marked. She should have called me Antonio Banderas, Melanie Griffiths. But we also raise money from our shops and from our worldwide community of body shops. And now we're building another school in the Serb area. So these sort of actions make me really proud of what we do. And I'd rather be measured by that than any other thing. I don't care how my share price goes up or down, in or out. It's vague, it's like life, sometimes it's good, it's like marriage, sometimes it's terrific, sometimes it's rotten. But this is the thing that will indelibly stay in our minds of the people I'm employing. Travel is another area. One of the things I think that gave my company my edge is I got out of the chair, out of the office, and I moved. And I tend to move towards people that have a much clearer vision than myself, and we can understand and have insights. And every time I travel, I gather insights. And the insights I share, I accept, or I see, or I experience, because experiences change your values. I share. And whether it's that I'm going into, being invited to go into the Brazilian rainforest to stop the World Bank putting yet another Stalinist symbol of another hydroelectric dam, and forcing the Kaipo Indians out of their job. Going in there and spending time working with the environmental groups, managing to get finally to get the dam stopped, but being invited into the community of the Kaipo, which is really quite rare then, and it was quite scary because 20 years previous they would have, cut your head off. So they invited me in, and they understood what was happening to their land. They understood. They didn't read, they didn't write. They understood the loggers were going in. Their primal forests were being destroyed for the logging industry. So they said, can we look for other ways of earning an income? So we can have the strength to keep the loggers out. So I spent about 3 weeks with the Kaipo Indians, and it was a fascinating time. They have no notion of beauty. If you stood in front of them and said, paint me, they couldn't paint a face, and they couldn't paint a body, and they couldn't paint legs. They paint diametric patterns on your body, and that's the life story of a woman. And the patterns are different from a man, and the life story of a man. And they also have a belief that that the forest can give you a baby. So they asked me if I'd like to have a forest baby. So I don't know, probably 10 years ago, I'd be my late 40s then. No, probably a bit older. And I said, yeah, I love a forest baby. So for three days I went into the forest with the shamans and the wise medicine men, and the Kaipo have amazing ethnobotanical knowledge. They know cures for everything. They know contraception. They know every plant and what it does. Hence, the pharmaceutical industry is consistently going in like thieves, taking away their knowledge from them. So for 3 days, I was in the middle of the rainforest and being hit on my back by these bunches of leaves, being wrapped around by vines. And after the 3rd day, they said to me, as I was leaving the forest, you will have a female baby. Then I started to really worry, because the only babies I've ever had are female. So what wisdom did they have in this little plant that I didn't know about? So then I went back out of the village, and I said to the woman, I said, what have I just gone through? And they said, oh, don't worry about this. This is for the friends of many. Women in that Kaipo community, when they have they're called the friends of many, which means they have many lovers. And when they have a baby, and they don't want to say, you're the father of my child, they go into the forest, they go through the ritual I went through, and it becomes a forest baby, and the entire community loves it. So I learned how to have a forest baby there. And then they told me about Brazil nuts. They told me how they gathered them, how they farm them, what trees they grow up against them to protect them. And they said they said they use it for their hair, and they use it to cook and to eat. And so the light came on my head when we could use this for some of our shampoos and conditioners. So I bought an ICI, a very big pharmaceutical company, and I said, give me some good machinery to press oil, which they did. You see it here. And the Kaipo gathered the nuts, pressed the oil, we bought it and put it into our products. And it worked, but it was terribly difficult, because they moved their community every 2 years, and every 2 years you have to start again. And sometimes they would say, we don't want to gather any more Brazil nuts because it's too heavy, we'd rather go fishing. So there was never any more Brazil nut shampoo or conditioner. We paid 3 times the price of Brazil nut oil that was on the commodities market, and still, because you use so little oil in the shampoo, that makes sense, we could make a profit on the ship. So the line that says, when you buy these high prices for your labor, you lose out, is greed. It's greed. So we're still there. They now have a pharmaceutical little area called the Green Pharmacy. They treat with allopathic medicine, modern Western illnesses. They treat their own tribal illnesses with tribal medicine and green medicine. They have an internet cafe in town, which is making more money than they'd ever seen before. They have a health clinic, they have schools, they have clean water. So for me, the answer is in giving them the tools to survive. A poor man shames us all. This is a quote from a Wadabe, which is a group of nomad tribe north of Niger. And they're quite remarkable, because they're the only group that have a male beauty pageant, and the women decide who are the most beautiful men. So you sit around them while they dance, and they sing, and they jump, and you measure their beauty by their eyes and the chattering of their teeth. They have no word for war in that community. So I learned that when I was in that community, when I gave them something, like we gave them some goats, everything is shared out in that community. They measure their greatness by how they welcome strangers. I mean, I look at my house, I've got a door that has a secret pad. Everything is security. But they have a belief that their greatness is how you welcome strangers. A lot to be learned. And as I traveled, I realized the only thing I could do to bring values into my company, in my products, because they're shampoos and conditioners. They're not a matter of life and death. They're not the body and blood of Jesus Christ. They can be made anywhere, by anybody. How do you bring values into a shampoo or into a lotion? And the way I found it is community trade. This is just a purchasing program where we go, cut out every middleman, and we go straight to the community. And through thoughtfulness and along this process, we dialogue. We dialogue. It's like metaphorically taking tea. We sit down and we say, what is it that you've got that can grow for us and harvest for us that we can buy? What is it that you need? What is the money that you need for this? What does it work for you? Do you need a 10% extra addition which we will give you for social initiatives like schools? And it's a long process. And do you have a cooperative? We don't want to deal just with one person, we want to deal with the whole community. And I should say some of the 29 community trade projects we have around the world are not easy, like the Kaipo Indians, but for me, the measurement of the success of the Body Shop is really is how many good community trade projects we have. And so, I'll give you an example. Some 12 years ago, I went into Ghana. I was making a film with the BBC, and I went into these villages up in the north, and these villages all have these markets, and on these markets there's these huge blocks of like waxy cooking fat, and that was shea butter, and they use that for their hair, they use that for their skin, and it is extraordinary on the skin. So I said to the women, do you have a notion and understanding of a cooperative? And they do. They had only just started the cooperative because they used to buy together to take to the marketplaces. So then I decided, after spending a few weeks with them, after knowing and pounding and seeing the processes, that we could help them, we could buy from them. And it is quite fantastic, the cooperative movement that we've helped set up in northern Ghana. And when I go back and they thank me, there's something quite remarkable, because it's like life. You go in and you feel so happy when you're thanked. But when you see objects of desire, for them I'm very famous in Ghana because I'm a lavatory. Because in their communities, all they have is Anita Roddick lavatories. So all the lavatories that are being constructed in these huge number of villages will have my name on. So you can't be egotistical when you go to Ghana. I'm famous for the lavatories. And this is another celebration. This is just trading. Trading isn't, as I said, financial science. It's going into the markets, getting women's story. Storytelling is the basis of education. And every country I've been to, it's about the myths and the legends of what makes you great and divine. It's the stories of what makes who you are. You lose your sense of storytelling, you lose your sense of self. I've always quoted the Kellers, who are always the great storytellers, certainly around the area where I live. They said all teachers should be poets because knowledge, unless it goes through the heart, was dangerous. So, another example is India, Tamil Nadu, a very poor state where we worked with, helped set up an initiative called Teddy Exports. Teddy is the name of a little boy. It started by one of our employees who went to India, fell in love, stayed, had a child, and set up, Teddy Exports. And we went years ago and saw these workshops where all these wood-turning instruments. We said, we can do better than this. Let's have a sort of a compound, a campus where hundreds of people can work, making for us in the body shop these massage rollers, wooden footsie rollers. And the first thing they do, when the money came in, there was build a Montessori school. Next thing, they have a veterinary clinic. Every community trade project has veterinary clinics. This community trade project in Tirunelveli has treated 17,000 livestock last year. It has a Montessori school, it has a little bus that takes the children to school and back. It provides free uniforms, free lunch for the workers and for the school kids. The disabled children are brought into the school. Children from the matchbox factories are brought in the evening to be educated. Women who work in the school go in and teach women in the sex industry and other professions. They have the best HIV and AIDS awareness program attached to the garages, all out of one community trade project. This isn't about accumulating the money to build a bigger home or find a palace. This is about where the community looks after itself, as I said at the beginning. And what we do with it, we emblazon it on our trucks. That says in Ghana they built a well without cocoa butter. This is the interaction that I think that many businesses love. This is the lack of imagination. When I've been for years trying to get Avon Cosmetics to work with us, with our Nicaraguan farmers, who grow sesame oil, which is wonderful on the skin. And Avon is so enormous, and so brilliant in many ways. And yet it just doesn't get that purchasing, honourable purchasing, giving the right amount of money for the right value of the product or the ingredient works. Now, I'm going to give you a sort of a terrible series of slides that I hope will shake you. This is a photograph that was taken last year when I was in Nigeria. This is in Ogoniland. This is where 500,000 unrepresented people live, the Ogoni people. They're the nation's writers, teachers, educators. They're the most intelligent tribe or group in Nigeria. Unfortunately, in early 1950s, unfortunately, oil was discovered. So, since the early 50s to now, billions of barrels of oil have been extracted, billions of dollars have been made for the major oil companies, normally, majorly, Shell. Not one penny has been put in to clean up its mess, not one. So here you go, this is just an ordinary well, this is an ordinary swamp in an ordinary village today in Ogoniland. Or you can see this one here. This is when we were invited years ago by Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was a political activist, an environmentalist, and when he returned, and very famous for challenging Shell and the Nigerian government, which was then a dictatorship. And he came to see us at the body shop and he said, support us whatever we do. And in prison he wrote to us. And we, from every shop around the world, writing letters, campaigning on his behalf, we allowed our staff to picket outside the Nigerian embassy at a manager's meeting, or outside the Shell building. We turned our shops into action stations, and I'll show you later. This is another photograph of what goes on in Nigeria. This is a photograph of a school, an ordinary school today, last year in Nigeria, where the kids made their own desks and write the letters, which you can't see, on the wall because there's no paper or pencil. Not one penny has gone back for the billions of dollars for the shareholders of Shell. and the Nigerian government that then takes it away and hides it to tax havens somewhere in the world. I don't know about you, I take this personally. This makes me mad. This is a hospital. This is the operating theatre. Some 15,000 that go in. There is a refrigerator with some serums in it that was bought for twice the price for the Sherlock Hospital. This is where women have